listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. Yeah, I am Rob McConnell. And here we are, year 25, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our radio website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, as well as the live broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, is at www.xzoneradiotv.com. And once again, we'd like to welcome all the new members of the X-Zone Nation listening to us in Belgium on radiox.eu, Belgium's only English-speaking commercial radio station that also gets into a great number of the other European countries. So from Canada to you, the new X-Zone Nation in Europe, welcome aboard. One of my favorite topics is dreams. And I had this young lady back on the show in September. And I thought it would be time to bring her back again to introduce her to the growing X-Zone Nation. Laurel Clark is my guest this hour. She is a regional director, past president, and teacher with the School of Metaphysics. She is also the vice president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, an intuitive counselor, and interfaith minister. Author of the book Intuitive Dreaming, Laurel has been keeping a dream journal since 1977 and interpreting dreams since 1979. After her husband died in the year 2000, Laurel had some profound visitation dreams that inspired her to explore the intuitive nature of dreams. She has interviewed and researched people whose dreams have inspired inventions, artwork, writing, music, and business ideas. Laurel frequently teaches and counsels people on how to use their own dreams for insight and self-awareness. Joining me now on a return visit here to the X-Zone is Laurel Clark. And Laurel, welcome back, my dear.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So what have you been up to since you and I last talked in, September?
Well, I have continued to keep a dream journal.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the process of writing another book that's about visualization how we can live with inspiration, and as well as teaching and a number of things like that.
So tell me, let's go back to the very first question that we should ask. What are dreams?
You know, that is a very interesting question, because even among the field of dream experts, there's not a consensus about that. What I've learned through my studies with the School of Metaphysics is that dreams are a communication that come from the inner self, what I would call the subconscious mind, to the outer self. So when we sleep at night,
mm-hmm.
you know, some people don't remember dreams and they think that they don't dream, but scientists have proven that everybody does dream. So there's something happening. There's brain activity, and even more than the brain activity, the real self, the soul, the spiritual self is existing in a place that some people call the inner levels of consciousness, some people call it the subconscious mind, and that is communicated to us when we wake up as a dream.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many different types of dreams are there? I know that there are the nightmare dreams. I know that there are the dreams where people believe they're flying. And I also know, like you had yourself, a visitation dream. But how many other types of dreams are there?
Well, there are what I would call actual dream experiences. For example, some people report mutual dreams that they and another person are dreaming the same thing at the same time, or actually connecting with that person, like an out-of-body experience, or sometimes a telepathic experience, being able to tell what someone else is thinking. Sometimes people have precognitive dreams, which are dreaming about probable future events. There are also health dreams. Some people have had dreams that have helped warn them of potential health problems or have given advice. I've had a few dreams that have given me some simple voice messages that gave me advice about health problems I was having.
Can you share that with us? Give our audience an example.
Sure. This is one, I wrote about it in the book Intuitive Dreaming that you mentioned. It was very odd. I had been driving through an ice storm, and it was horrible travel conditions. The roads were really icy. There were trucks off the side of the road. So I was very tense, and I was driving what should have been about a 4-hour drive. It took me about 6 hours. And when I got out of the car, I could tell that I had really wrenched my back. I could hardly even move. And I was pretty alarmed, especially because I have a couple of friends who have had times that their back has gone out and they literally could not get up. So anyway, before I went to bed, I asked my dreams, and I wrote this down in my dream notebook, for two things. One is that I wanted to actually be healed in the dream, and to have either a healing in the dream or some kind of message that would tell me what I needed to do to be healed, and I wanted to wake up pain-free. So I went to sleep, and the next morning, as I was awakening, before I was fully awake in my mind, I heard the words walk backwards. And so I wrote that down in my dream journal. And then when I came into full waking consciousness, the first thing is I felt my back, and amazingly, it was pain-free, where the night before I could hardly move. So I moved kind of gingerly, and then I looked at my dream notebook, and I saw this message that I'd written down that said walk backwards, and I thought, wow, that's really kind of strange. But I tried it, so I walked around backwards, and it felt pretty good. And then the even more amazing thing is that later that day, I had to drive again. That was part of my concern about the back pain. And I had a tape that a friend had given me quite a while ago that I had never listened to and had never even really wanted to listen to. And for some reason, I just popped it in the tape player that day. And it was an educational lecture from a man who sells and distributes essential oils. And he was talking about China, which is one of the countries where he gets some of the herbs and plants that he makes the essential oils from. And he said he was on a college campus, and on the college campus, the people walk backwards because it adjusts their lower spine. So that was quite amazing to me, because that was a waking message that confirmed what I'd had in my dream. And I believe the reason that I had that intuitive hunch to pop the tape player in that day was, if I had not had that happen, I might have discounted the dream, because I thought that was such a strange kind of message.
Is it possible that during your waking time you may have heard this information and absorbed it, and during the dream state this information about your back pain and how to solve it was released, giving you the idea? Or did that information come from another place? And if it did come from another place, where is it? Where is this other place that feeds people the information to their dreams?
You know, that's a great question. It may be that I had heard that somewhere, although if I had, I certainly didn't remember it consciously.
Sure.
And that's why it was so interesting to me that that day, after I had the dream, is when I listened to that tape that had been sitting in my car for a couple of months. I do think that it's possible to receive knowledge that comes from, it might be the Akashic Record, which is like a universal library that people can tap into. There is what Jung called the collective unconscious. It's a similar place that Edgar Cayce drew upon when he did health readings, where there's a kind of universal body of knowledge that is not always in people's conscious minds. However, it is available for people if their outer mind is quiet and if they are open to it, if they're asking for it. I believe the reason that I received that is because when I went to bed, before I went to sleep, I very specifically asked my subconscious mind to give me what I needed to heal my back. You know, had I not done that, had I just gone to bed taking a painkiller, I don't think that would have happened.
You know, the last time you and I spoke, I believe I told you that many times I'm faced with problems or problem solving for other people here in our media center. And because I'm so busy during the day, I'll say, well, listen, let me sleep on it. You know, and the next day I come back and I have the solution to their problem because it came to me at night. Is this because everything else was shut off and I could actually do the think processing and the solution to the problem came to me, or did that information come from an outside source?
You know, I don't know that someone else could answer that for you. I think really that is the kind of answer that people need to find for themselves. I think it can be both. I think sometimes when someone has been thinking through a problem, they've studied, they've read, and they've kind of exhausted their conscious mind, that when they go to sleep, or even if they're not asleep, just resting, that their intuition can bring things together, kind of like it crystallizes. And I know I've had that experience where all of a sudden I'll get a flash of insight. However, I do think, and have talked to many people who have had solutions that have come to them in dreams. Sometimes exactly as they need the information. Sometimes there's a piece of it in the dream, and then when they wake up, they're able to put other pieces together. So I think that one of the benefits of keeping a dream journal and also keeping a waking journal of intuitive experiences is that it helps people to learn about their own intuitive process, how that works, when it works, and why it works.
How long after we wake up do the dreams start to fade away?
Oh, almost immediately.
Wow.
And it's so frustrating when I know I've had this happen, that sometimes I'll have a dream that's really clear and profound, and I think I'll remember it. And if I don't write it down, I don't. Especially if it's something in the middle of the night and I'm too tired and I don't feel like writing it down. And when I wake up in the morning, it's gone. So it's very important to keep a journal. And even if it's just a matter of writing down some key words at first, and then as soon as possible writing down the whole dream, I think that's very important, because as soon as we start getting up, getting more attention into our conscious mind, thinking about the day, getting involved in a more aggressive kind of thinking, it's very easy for that memory to fade and completely disappear in many cases.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Laurel Clark. Her website is www.som.org. That's som.org, as well as www.dreamschool.org. Laurel, are dreams symbolic or literal?
I think they can be both. The way that I've learned to interpret dreams is to interpret all dreams symbolically first, and then also to look at the ways that they might be literal. So, for example, when a person dreams of someone who has died,
Yes.
you could interpret all people in dreams as being aspects of yourself, meaning qualities in you.
Mm-hmm.
And death as a symbol symbolizes change. So when we dream about someone who has died, there is something in us that person symbolized to us that has changed. However, that dream could also be a visitation dream where the spirit of the person who died can actually come to you in a dream in a communication. So I think it's important to learn what the symbolic meaning of a dream is, and then also to become aware of the different quality of dreams that are actual experiences.
No matter what the bookstore is, you can always go in and find a book that gives you the different meanings for what your dream had, for example, of the horse or a cat or whatever. How correct are these books when it comes to helping someone interpret their dreams?
Well, I think it depends on the book.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned through the School of Metaphysics is a kind of language called the universal language of mind that looks at the symbols based on a relationship between how something functions in the waking state and then what the corresponding function is to the soul or the spirit of the dreamer. And those symbols are in a book written by one of my teachers called The Dreamer's Dictionary by Barbara Condren. I think that book is excellent. So, because it doesn't just say, okay, if you dream about a car, it means this. It will tell you what the meaning is and certain kinds of questions you can ask yourself. So, for example, if you look at a car in the waking life, a car is a vehicle that we use to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And for us as a soul, if you think of the self as being a soul or a spirit, the vehicle that we use to get from point A to point B is our physical body. So I would interpret a car or a small vehicle as the physical body. So if I had a dream that I couldn't start my car or that my tires were flat, I would look at that as a health dream that's saying that there's something going on with me that is affecting my health, that I'm having a hard time getting up and going. And then let's say every person in the room had that same dream. On a symbolic level, there's a universal interpretation, but each dreamer would need to interpret their own dream and say, okay, what is it in my life that I'm doing that's causing me to be so tired? Maybe I'm burning the candle at both ends.
Right.
Maybe for another person, it's that they're worrying all the time, and that's wearing them out. So in that way, the symbols can be universal, and the interpretation of the dream is still personal.
Is it possible for people to prearrange a meeting in a dreamscape?
It is, and I know actually quite a few people who have groups that they plan to do that at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
I have done that on a few occasions in class settings as a teacher to arrange with some metaphysics students I have to have a class on the inner levels. And so it's kind of fun to experiment with. Sometimes people are more successful than others, but it's well worth experimenting with.
Do we dream in black and white, or do we just dream in color? Because there are times, Laurel, when I can remember my dreams so well, and other times I just get faded glimpses, and the faded glimpses ones are usually the ones in black and white.
Well, what I've learned is that the difference between black and white and color dreams has to do with how deep a state of sleep we're in. That the dreams that are in a more shallow state of sleep, sometimes as we're just waking up, or sometimes if it's a short nap, that those dreams are in black and white. And when we're in a deeper state of sleep, those are the dreams that are in color. The thing that's interesting to me about that, though, is sometimes I think that people may not know really whether their dreams are in black and white or color. I think sometimes people may have black and white dreams, but as they remember it, they colorize it in their imagination. And the reason that I think that is when I was growing up, I grew up on black and white television.
Me too.
And I never really thought about it. That was just the TV we had. And then when I was in college, I saw The Wizard of Oz on in a movie theater, which I had seen year after year as a kid on TV. And I had no idea that in the actual movie, in Kansas, it's all in black and white, and when they're in Oz, it's in color, because I just imagined the whole movie in color.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I saw it on the movie screen. So I think that might happen with people's dreams sometimes, is that they have a black and white dream, but they remember it in color because that's how they're used to thinking.
Perceiving
and,
it, yeah.
Right.
Laurel, please stand by, dear. You and I have to take a news break at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Laurel Clark is our special guest. What a lady. www.som.org and www.dreamschool.org. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and in Europe on Radio X, radiox.eu. We'll be coming back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. Laurel Clark is our special guest this hour, www.som.org. and www.dreamschool.org. Laurel, in your opinion, having done dream analysis, dream research, trying to get to the bottom of it, is there one dream that is more frequent than any other dream?
I think that kind of changes depending upon who the population is. But one dream that I hear very often from adults is having a dream of being back in school. Sometimes it's high school, sometimes it's college. And either the person is wandering the halls and they can't find the classroom, or they're in the classroom and all of a sudden they realize there's a test and they haven't been to the class all semester, or they're not prepared for the test. Something like that. And how I would interpret that dream is that the school is symbolizing some kind of learning in the dreamer's life, and usually not learning like geometry or chemistry, but some kind of life learning, like learning how to be more assertive or learning how to set goals or something like that. And the dreamer is aware that there's something that they should be learning or need to be learning, but they're not getting it. Like they're not prepared to, let's say the learning is that they need to be more assertive. And they know it, they're aware that they need to learn it, but they're not really practicing it. And so at work, something comes up, they should say what's on their mind, and they're not prepared to, and they don't. So basically they've failed the test in their waking life, and then that would be reflected in that type of dream at night.
Are there some people who are afraid of dreams?
Yes, there are. And oftentimes that happens when a person has had a nightmare that they didn't understand. In fact, this is fairly common with people who have post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're afraid to go to sleep because they have such horrible nightmares. Sometimes it happens with people who have had a precognitive dream and of something unpleasant, and then the unpleasant event happened, and they think it was their fault because they dreamed about it. And it doesn't mean it was their fault, but if they mistakenly think that's the case, then they're afraid to remember their dreams because they don't want to basically be cursing other people if they look at it that way.
Does what you eat have an effect on your dream patterns?
I don't think it directly affects the dreams. It can affect sleep, though.
Mm-hmm.
If people eat too close to going to sleep, because there's energy that needs to go into the digestive process, it makes it difficult to go into a deep state of sleep. And then because that's interrupting the deep sleep, then that can have an effect on the dreams. But I don't think it's true, for example, if you eat pizza, you're going to get nightmares or things like that sometimes people think.
How many dreams a night does a normal person have during, let's say, an 8-hour sleep cycle?
I don't know about that. I know sometimes when people have sleep studies done, like particularly people who have sleep problems, and they're hooked up to electrodes that measure their brain waves, that there are brain scientists that are able to measure that, but that's not my area of expertise, so I don't really know.
What would you say your area of expertise is then?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's the practical application of dreams in everyday life. In other words, using dreams as a method of self-awareness, self-counseling, being able to provide guidance, and in some cases being able to draw upon intuitive messages like healing messages or ways of being able to have insight into situations, into either one's life or sometimes another person's life.
So when we're dreaming at night, I know there are some people who walk in their sleep. There are other people who talk in their sleep, laugh in their sleep. And then there are people who seem to be frozen in time when they're waking up out of a dream. Some people call it the old hag syndrome. What is that about?
That is called sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. And my understanding of what happens is that when we go to sleep at night, there are certain chemicals that are released in the brain that are actually designed to paralyze the body, if you want to call it that. In other words, to keep the body immobile so that we can get into a deep state of sleep. And if a person is awakening, what should happen is that then that changes so we're able to move again. I know that sometimes when people take certain sleep medications, it can cause that to happen, that they are partially awake but not completely awake. Like they think they're awake, but the body is still in that frozen kind of state, and so that can be scary. Sometimes it happens when people experience lucid dreams where they're aware in the dream state that they're sleeping.
Yep.
And there is a man named Ryan Hurd, his last name is spelled Hurd, who has done quite a bit of research on sleep paralysis. He's got a great book on it, and he has a website that has quite a bit of material, a lot of free articles. If people want to read more about that, I would really recommend that they read his material because he's researched it quite a bit.
I know that I have dreams in which I know I'm sleeping and what I'm experiencing is a dream. And if I'm not sure, I look for something to read. For example, a sign on the store, a newspaper, a menu. And if I cannot understand what I'm supposed to, what I'm reading, I know it's a dream. And boy, do I have fun. I have fun.
Yeah. Have you experimented with that on purpose, or was that something that just happened that you discovered that?
I discovered that, I've been able to do that ever since I was a young guy. And, I've even had dreams within a dream within a dream within a dream, and I know that I'm in a fourth layer dream.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. There are a lot of people who really want to be able to have that experience, and they have a hard time getting there. And there are certain practices that people can do when they're awake to help to stimulate that.
What would some of those practices be? Yeah.
Well, one thing is to take an object. In fact, I have a stone, kind of a nice flat stone that I found somewhere, and I wrote on it in marker, could I be dreaming?
Right.
And so when I pass my kitchen counter and I see that stone that says, could I be dreaming, I tell myself that I would like to see that stone in my dream so that in the dream when I see it, I can ask the same question. Or sometimes a simple practice is before going to sleep at night to concentrate on your hands and tell yourself that you're going to see your hands in a dream. And when you see your hands, that's going to tell you that you're dreaming. So basically what you do is you pick some object similar to what you're saying, that you look for something to read.
Right.
You could do that in the waking state, is when you're reading something, is to ask, am I dreaming or could I be dreaming? Basically, the idea being to increase your awareness of what is a dream. You know, sometimes people go through things in their waking life and they'll say, wow, this seems like a dream. So becoming aware of what our state of consciousness is instead of just kind of going through life being asleep when we're awake.
What is daydreaming? Is that a waking dream we have?
In a sense, it is. Most daydreams are when someone is allowing their mind to wander, and in some cases it can be receiving or absorbing images from other people, like a telepathic communication. But more often it's allowing the mind to wander rather than a directed visualization that's being done on purpose. It's allowing the mind to drift from one thing to another. And sometimes, if that's done on purpose, it can be a very useful tool for creative thinking, creative imagination, kind of like you were talking about doing problem solving at work. And if a person has a problem that they're wanting to solve, that they're thinking about and concentrating on, then if they do something relaxing like go for a drive, sometimes it's taking a bath or something that doesn't really require a lot of focused, conscious attention, their mind can drift and the solutions can come to them.
At what age do we start dreaming?
I think it starts from the very beginning. What I have found is that usually once a child can begin to talk, they will talk about their dreams. And sometimes parents who are not aware of dreams, they think that the kid is just talking nonsense. But the parents I know who themselves know about dreams pay close attention when their children wake up and keep dream journals for them, which if the parent knows how to interpret the dreams, that can be very helpful in terms of helping the parent to understand the child, and then the parent being able to help the child understand what's going on with them.
What advice do you have for parents who may be listening tonight who have a child who has nightmares? How do you deal with a child that has nightmares?
Well, I think the most important thing, first of all, is to receive the child and to acknowledge that what they experienced when they were sleeping was real, instead of saying, oh, don't worry about it, it was just a dream. Because I think any of us who's had a nightmare knows that the feeling of it is very real, even if the events are not physical. So to wake up being frightened and then have someone tell you, oh, that wasn't real, can be very confusing. And so I think just receiving the child, allowing them to talk about it, holding them, comforting them, and then if the parent knows how to interpret it, depending upon the age of the child, helping them to understand what's going on can be helpful. But even if the parent doesn't know how to interpret it, just allowing the child to talk it out or maybe even draw it or act it out can help them to give an expression to whatever it was that was occurring. The other thing that I would recommend is that parents be aware of the fact that children are kind of like sponges. They're very absorbent and aware of the thoughts and emotions of the people around them. Mm-hmm. So if there are parents who are going through something troubling, even if they're not talking about it, the child very likely will, in some way, receive the emotion. So let's say they discover that there are financial problems or that someone in the family is very sick. If the parents are worried about that or scared about that, it's likely that that can affect the child in the form of a nightmare. And so it helps the adults to be aware of what they can do with themselves so that their thoughts and emotions are not negatively influencing the child, for them to get counseling or do whatever they need to do to resolve their own difficulties.
Are some dreams fed by the person's ego?
I think so. And, part of what I have learned is that sometimes when people report dreams, they can embellish them or they can leave things out. And I usually think that's kind of ego-driven. So if someone really wants to understand their dreams, the best thing to do is to report it just like it happened, even if there are things about it that they don't like or if they would like it to be different, is to still report the dream as it happened so that they can understand it and understand themselves in the process.
There are a lot of people that I've talked to who have these really hot, sexual, vivid, realistic dreams. How do they have them? What is it in their psyche that would trigger a dream that is very sexually explicit?
Well, that's a great question, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. People tend to focus on relationship dreams. Sexual dreams have to do with the creative thinking or the creative activity of the dreamer. There is an energy called Kundalini energy that can be used for sexual activity. It can also be used for creative activity. So when a person is having a sexual dream, what it's indicating is that they're very creative, and the other person who they're involved with symbolizes an aspect of themselves. And so if they can identify the quality in that person, like maybe they look at that person as being very determined, whatever that quality is, it's something in themselves that they engage with when they're in the process of creating something.
All right. Laurel, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, and do you have any courses coming up?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is through either of those websites you mentioned, either www.som.org or www.dreamschool.org. My email is lclark@som.org. And actually this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time, which would be 3 p.m. Eastern Time, there is a free webinar on relationship dreams that I am the guest speaker for. That's for an hour. And people can sign up for that at dreamschool.org. There's also a course of study for your listeners who are in other parts of the world that they can take online to learn about dreams. And I also do dream coaching. If people are interested in individual dream coaching, I can arrange with them to set that up.
What is dream coaching?
Well, it depends upon what someone is interested in.
I
It
see.
could be that they have dreams that they want interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that they want assistance in being able to remember their dreams or
Right.
being able to develop more of the intuitive nature of dreams, as we were talking about. So it's, you could call it counseling using dreams as a focal point.
Once again, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us, Laurel. Continued success, and I look forward to the next time you're back with us here in the X Zone.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciated being on your show.
You take care, my friend. Bye-bye now.
Thank
X Zone
you.
Nation, Laurel Clark has been my guest this hour. www.som.org and www.dreamschool.org. Well, that's it for tonight, X Zone Nation. Another 4 hours up, another 4 hours down. Time goes by so fast when you're having fun. And let me see, just for those of you who are interested in politics, Bernie Sanders is ahead with 82% of the polls reporting, with 60% of the vote for the Democrats. And on the Republican side, Donald Trump, 35% of the total votes so far, at 83% of polls reporting in. John Kasich, 16%. Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush are tied there's a three-way tie. Bush, Cruz, and Rubio at 11%. Christie, 8%. Fiorina, 4%. And Dr. Ben Carson at 2%. So until tomorrow night, X Zone Nation, always keep your eyes to the sky.